The last item that we want to cover in this lesson is Dynamic SQL. Dynamic SQL allows you to create a SQL statement on the fly. This can allow for your applications to be potentially more flexible for your users. If you are, however, going to be generating SQL on the fly, there are a couple of little things that you need to be aware of. First of all is performance. You want to make sure that you're using the SP execute SQL store procedure, as this is going to give SQL the best opportunity to cache query plans. And you also want to be very careful about SQL injection attacks, which can allow an attacker to inject their own SQL statements. The best ways to avoid that are to always use parameters and to make sure that you're validating user input. The syntax for execute SQL is SP execute SQL, the SQL statement, and then if you are using parameters, the definitions of all the parameters, and then finally all the values. Let's take a look at how to do this. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make my life a little easier. I'm just going to copy and paste that. And let's put that into a variable. And we set up variables by saying declare, @, and then the data type that we want it to be, which in our case will be nvarchar, and let's say 500. Let's just do a little bit of cleanup. And at the very end here, I'm going to say @lastName. And my @lastName is going to be a parameter where we'll be able to pass in a last name. Then I'm going to say declare my parameter definitions, and I'm going to set this to be @lastName nvarchar 50. And then I'm going to execute this by saying execute SP execute SQL. There we go. And let's pass in our SQL. Let's pass in our parameter definitions. And then finally, last but not least, we'll say last name equals Harrison. And then when we execute this, you'll notice that we get all the exact same names. Now, of course, this is a very simple little example of just looking at the syntax, but you could then use this in your applications to dynamically come up with your SQL. With that, I'll see you in the next lesson.